I bet you have never massaged these 5 hidden muscles that can create all kinds of pain, from thoracic outlet syndrome to lower back pain and even leg pain. And even though learning all this took me over 8 months to figure out, you're only going to need 8 minutes to master it. Starting with the one muscle that can create nervy arm and shoulder pain by compressing on the nerves and blood vessels between the clavicle and the first rib, which is the subclavius. Now follow along with me. Find your clavicle and begin gently pressing underneath it to find the subclavius. And if you're having trouble getting in there, simply raise your arm up in front of you to bring that clavicle out a little more. And once you find it and begin pressing on it, if it feels tight, tender, or even a little painful, then suck it up a little bit and keep hanging on that spot for 1 to 2 minutes, because chances are it's full of trigger points, which is most likely making it tight, creating that compression, and making it painful. And one of the easiest ways to get rid of trigger points is to simply perform static pressure. And if you're wondering how this muscle creates compression, well, it's attached to the first rib and the clavicle, which means when it gets tight and overused, it's going to shorten, get full of trigger points, and pull the two attachments closer together, meaning it is pulling the clavicle and the first rib together, creating that compression. Now, how often have you ever had your armpit massaged? Because the next two muscles are located deep inside. With this first one, that also creates thoracic outlet syndrome, and no one seems to talk about the coracobrachialis. This deep muscle attaches to the scapula and the inside arm, which means if this muscle gets tight and full of trigger points, it can compress on the nerves and blood vessels that go into the arm. On top of that, this muscle will contract anytime you bring your arms up, which means it's even more likely that this muscle is full of trigger points. I even think that this is the main reason why Markelle Fultz mysteriously wasn't able to shoot 3-pointers when he was drafted in the NBA. Now, to locate this muscle, you need to go deep inside the armpit with your thumb pointing into the humerus. Now, be warned that there are a lot of blood vessels and nerves in here as well. But if you do end up pressing on one or touching one, you will know immediately, and all you have to do is move to the left or right a little bit and keep working on it. And once you think you found the muscle, you can squeeze your elbow into your side to feel it contract and confirm that you're on it. For the muscle, I would perform some micro movements by moving back and forth and side to side on that one spot with your thumb. You can also use your hands to pull into the arm and get even more pressure on the muscle. Well, what I was trying to say is, and besides the coracobrachialis, there's another muscle deep inside the armpit that you can also work on, and that is the subscapularis. Now, the reason why I believe most people have a hard time trying to massage this muscle is because they think it's just really deep based on its location. But in reality, it's actually really easy to get to, and there's 2 different ways. But before I show you, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. It really does help me out and it helps my channel grow. Thank you. The first way you're going to be attacking that subscap is going to be with your other arm. Let me explain. Reach your affected arm out in front of you as far as you can. This is going to help expose the subscapularis. From here, reach your other arm across the body and grab the new exposed scapula to begin massaging it. You can either hold on to it or perform some micro movements for 1 to 2 minutes. Now, if you have trouble reaching over with your other arm, then go and grab a broomstick for option number 2. Because now the only thing that changes here is now that you're using a broom handle instead of your hands to work on the muscle, in which you can still do the same exact techniques. Now, moving down to the lower back, I'm going to show you how to get rid of that lower back pain by properly massaging the psoas muscle. Now, most PTs are going to sit there and tell you that you can't massage this muscle, but they're wrong here. First off, muscles, especially the core tissues, are relatively thin. For example, the six-pack muscles is only 10 to 12 millimeters, which is less than ½ an inch thick. And if you release your psoas the way I'm about to show you, you're not even going to be going through that thickest part of the stomach. And number 2 is we have intestines in there that isn't really locked down to anything and isn't secured, which means if you're pressing in gently, you're going to be able to bypass it without disrupting it. And then 3, you can easily confirm that you are touching the psoas muscle, or at least working on it, by lifting your leg up in the air when you think you're on it. When you lift your leg in the air, the psoas muscle is going to contract because it is the only muscle in the stomach that controls the hips. So with all that said, how do you access the psoas? Start by laying on your back with your feet planted and your knees bent. From here, grab a lacrosse ball and place it right next to your six-pack. Now grab a yoga block and place it on top of the ball in order to add some leverage. Angle the yoga block to roughly 30 to 45 degrees into the stomach as you press down. When you're starting off, make sure to move slowly and be patient. You want to move with the breath and gently press down and allow the body to accept the push instead of trying to force it down in there. The idea is if you hang out there and just pay attention to it while you're taking in big, deep breaths, the stomach and the muscles are going to allow you to gently press in there as opposed to you trying to force it in there. And once you believe you found it, go ahead and lift your knee to contract the muscle. You should feel something pop up inside the stomach. To me, it feels like a little road bump inside the muscle right before you get to the center where the spine is. So if you're able to find like a little bump in the road basically in the stomach, that's kind of how you know you're on it. After you have found it, go ahead and perform some static pressure for 1 to 2 minutes while making sure you're taking in big, deep breaths. The breathing part is key here when you want to release the psoas. And I know it's counterintuitive because you're pressing into the stomach, but trust me when I say use your stomach to do the breathing while you're pressing in there as well. It's going to help it relax even faster. After you're done with that, we can then perform a pin and stretch. On that same side leg, what you're going to do is slowly slide your heel away from the body all the way until your hamstring is touching the floor. This is going to help stretch out the muscle, and with you holding on pressure the entire time, it's going to help strip out the muscle and the fascia. Once your hamstrings are touching the floor, go ahead and reset and then repeat for another 1 to 2 minutes. And what do you do if you have pain that shoots into the hips and down the legs? You work on the glute medius. Now, the reason why I believe most people won't work on the glute medius is because it's located just on the outside of the pelvis, which I kind of get because instinctively you don't want to work on the bony areas of the body. But we also have to remember there's lots of muscles on those bony areas as well. And the glute medius is definitely one of them that needs it, especially because it performs 5 out of 6 of the hip motions, which means that when you're performing any sort of movement with your legs, it's almost guaranteed that this muscle is activated in one way or another. Now, in order to locate the glute medius, all you have to do is first find your TFL, which is located right on your pocket, and then you find your glute max, which is your butt basically, and then right between those two is going to be your glute medius. Once you're able to find it, use a lacrosse ball or a 5-inch ball and begin massaging it out. You can perform some static pressure, micro movements, or even a pin and stretch for 1 to 2 minutes. Just be warning that it is most likely going to be very tender, so take it slow and be patient. After massaging all these different muscles out, it's vital for you to go and start working on the mobility in your shoulder and your spine, which you can easily learn how to do by clicking on the video in the top right corner.